everybody! Welcome to my September wrap-up video and as well as my October TBR video. I'm just wrapping it all up into one. In September, I ended up reading 3 books, which is something that I kind of suspected. The first book I read most of in August and it just carried over to September. September was really busy. I now know that probably every single month of the school year is going to be really busy, but I'm going to try to read as much as I can because it makes me so happy. So the first book that I read was Clockwork Princess by Cassandra Clare. This was a library book, so I don't have it with me. I give this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I very much like this series more than the regular Mortal Instruments series. This is book 1 of the Infernal Devices series. The main female character in the Infernal Devices series, whose name is Gemma, I still find a little bit annoying, and part of her character is that she asks a lot of questions, and other characters are like, oh, it's just part of her personality, blah blah blah, and that's true, but also it gets to a point where she'll ask questions that are kind of rude. But I love historical fiction novels. I really like the whole concept of the Shadowhunter world. I again think that these are the kind of books that younger Maggie would have loved. So I actually own the next 2 books in the Infernal Devices series, so hopefully I'll be getting to those pretty soon. The next book I read was The Crown's Game by Evelyn Skye, and I loved this book. This book I think I would give 4.5 out of 5 stars. It's set in the early 1800s in Russia, and it is about these 2 competing warlocks, one boy, one girl, they're both teenagers, and they are trying to become the Empirical Enchanter, and there can only be one, so they have the Crown's Game, which is to decide which one it will be. So eventually there is a love triangle, and that complicates things a bit. I'm really looking forward to the sequel. This is a book that I highly recommend reading in the fall. It just gave me all of the fall vibes. I think it also takes place in the fall, so I was just really feeling it for September. The final book that I read in September was A Torch Against the Night by Sabah Tahir, and I really loved this book. It was 4 out of 5 stars from me. I'll talk about it more in depth in a review that will be coming out next weekend or next week on Friday. This is the sequel to An Ember in the Ashes, and I love that book so much, so I was really anticipating this release. And this was an August release, and I picked it up right away. It took me a while to get into because just the way it was written was a little bit slow for me, and then the end I was like, oh my gosh, kapow! That was a lot of feelings and a lot of things that happened, and oh my gosh, that just made the whole book so much better. Like I said, look out for that review that will be coming out next week. I just forgot that I had something that I really wanted to show you. I have made a couple renovations in my shelf. One, I brought up this shelf so that the shelf underneath it could have taller books on it. And then second, I got fairy lights! Woo-woo! You can't really see all of them, and also I only had enough to go to the shelf. So they're very pretty, and I'm really happy that I have them. They look a little Christmassy, but I don't know. I like them. So, the first book I have to show you is The Merciless by Danielle Vega. This is the first book on my October TBR for obvious reasons. This is a YA horror novel. This isn't that long, and it follows a girl who is trying to fit in because she just moved to a different school, and she meets this popular group and she becomes part of the popular group, and the popular group end up trying to do some pretty bad things to another girl, and yeah, it follows an exorcism and a kidnapping. Definitely set in the mood for Halloween and creepy things. The next book I have is The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. Let's just go with that last name pronunciation. It's probably wrong. I have actually already read this book because I started it at the very end of September. So I already finished this. I actually finished it today. I was really happy with it, but I decided to include it on my October TBR because I read a lot of it in October. So this is about a girl who is 16 and she lives in Virginia, and her family is a bunch of psychics, and she goes on an adventure with a bunch of preppy schoolboys. There's 4 of them, and they go on an adventure to try to find this like Celtic king, and it's very magical. And I didn't really think that this was going to be a very, I don't know, like Halloweenish book, but this definitely like fits the feeling. It has like magical realism in it. It's really good, and oh my god, the writing is spectacular. I don't think I've ever read such amazing sentence structure in YA literature. Like, this book is just spectacular. I love it so much. So the next book I have is Julia Vanishes by Katherine Egan. And again, this is a kind of witchy novel. So this book is based in a world that's basically Salem witch trials. So witches are being drowned in public cleansings, and Julia has a power, and her power is to go unseen, like in between the worlds. And she uses this for stealing, because why not? The next book I have to read is The Awakening by Kate Chopin, and I got a pretty cover version. This is actually a school book that I'm going to be reading, but since it's a part of an independent novel project and I got to pick it out myself, I decided to include it in this month's TBR. This is a very short novel. It's about a woman named Edna who lives in the South, and she is kind of like combating her own time period. She's a housewife, and she's trying to find out who she is like later on in life. I don't really know that much about this book, but I've heard from many sources that the majority hate this book, but there's a few that love this book, so I'm really intrigued to pick this up. And then, if I have time, I would like to get to the 3rd book in the Harry Potter series, which is Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, and I need a little good old warm hug, and the Harry Potter series is basically a warm hug in a book form. So if I have time, I'll definitely be trying to get to this book this month. It's following the witches theme this month. I thought it was appropriate. I mean, what is better than the magical world of Harry Potter? Thank you so much for watching this video. I put out a video every single Friday, so subscribe if you want to see more. I can't wait to hear about all your reading adventures, and if you want to recommend any books, make sure to put it in the comments below. Have fun reading!